Welcome back to Press Here. If you want to be the next Google or the next Yelp, you will need money. Lots of money to grow big. Traditionally in Silicon Valley, that is if Silicon Valley can be said to be traditional, there's one way to do that. And that is to accept a check from venture capital. Early investors funding right at the garage level. Here's a fictionalized scene of those first moments at Apple Computer.
Welcome to Apple Computers.
Thank you. Here it is, huh? Yeah, I was looking for a venture opportunity like this.
What kind of venture money are we talking about, Mike?
Well, I figure we start with about $250,000 and see what happens.
Excuse me?
Most startups take venture capital. Textbook rental company Chegg.com just received another round of funding from VC worth $75 million. But whether angel funding or VC, both require company founders to give away part of the startup in exchange for the cash. Jerry Iwata is Senior Vice President of Comerica Bank. He suggests an alternative to the traditional VC or angel funding. It almost sounds quaint that someone could walk into a bank and ask for a loan. In 2010, does anybody still do that in high tech?
Well, it's funny, actually, if a person walked into a bank with $10 million, they can call me up. They wouldn't have to wait in a line.
Well, at $10 million, they don't need a loan, Jerry.
Wouldn't make them put a hold on that check. So we actually, it's interesting enough, with the startup businesses we work with, they are raising, particularly from the first time fundraising, money that will last 12, maybe 18 months. And they will specifically need to raise further capital. Because of our comfort in this area, we've lent to companies right on day one where the investors or the entrepreneurs have called us up, said, we have money, we're looking for a loan. And we've funded, basically on a future.
I didn't mean to interrupt right there, but there is somebody at home who just said, the banker said, we have money, we need a loan. If they have money, Jerry, why do they need the loan? Explain that basic idea to me, that I've been given $10 million. Why am I getting a loan from you?
So, we are an alternative class for the entrepreneur as well as the investors, because we work hand in hand with both. What we provide can be non-dilutive. So instead of having to give up ownership or control, we don't want that. We're cheaper than, obviously, equity. What we do provide, though, and this is important for both, is really giving them the cushion and even a runway, particularly to get a milestone for the next financing or even to get the financing done.
But the thing is, when you go to an angel or you go to a VC, they give you a lump of dosh. You go and do your thing and try and get your product all perfected, etc., etc. You might not be making money, but if you get a loan, as soon as you get the loan, you have to start paying it back right away. But if you're not getting any money coming in, you're kind of screwed on that front.
Well, it's actually, that is a good point, because most of the companies we lend to from day one do not have revenue and may not for a couple of years, and on the life science side, it could be a decade before they're even into revenue. What we're looking, though, is that really our loans are typically not just 12 or 18 months. They're multi-year. So it's really even past, the repayment period is even beyond where the current funding would take them.
But normally when you get a loan, you've got to start paying it back right away. Are you saying that's not the way it works with you? You get your lump sum and you don't start paying back for a year?
So we actually do have an interest-only component, but then we also amortize it over, maybe say 3 years. So it's not that, the company may have 12 to 18 months. We're actually providing a loan that doesn't need to be repaid today.
So what might appeal to the startup with a bank versus a VC is that they don't, in a sense, the founders of the company maintain their control, right? Versus giving up some of the control to the VC.
It does. Actually, what the venture community likes as well is because there's that period of point where we're increasing the value, and hopefully, again, giving the company a little more cushion or time, and so that'll increase the value, and maybe requires less money that they'll need to put in over time. There are things that we're funding as well as this company continues to get into revenue. It could be from receivables to equipment to inventory, maybe to acquisition financing. So there are a lot of things that we're funding that necessarily the investor would rather not have to, because from their perspective, the best investment is the one that they don't put as much money in.
Right. But one of the reasons why a lot of startups go to the angels or go to VCs, because it's not just about the money, it's about them being mentored by these seasoned professionals. It's about the contacts that the angels may have, the VCs may have. It's about deals that they can help get them done, cheaper prices, lower rent, all these kinds of things. So when you go to a VC or an angel, it's not just about the money. Can you give that as well?
So we do. It's funny. We do work hand in hand because we rely on the venture community as well as entrepreneur. I mean, we underwrite really to that. That relationship we have and the history we've had, and we've been doing this for over 15 years. We actually do provide services. Example, for the past 4 years, I've run a Camp Entrepreneur at UCSF to encourage entrepreneurship, bringing our companies, investors, to them for free to encourage to create companies. We have roundtables with our CFOs. We have with our CEOs. We bring the venture community in, and actually when our companies are trying to fundraise, we'll set up venues where they'll be able to pitch. So we do try to help them. We're not an investment bank in that sense, but we are trying to, as a part of this community, help these companies.
Jerry, let me break in just for a second. And we're seeing through the internet worldwide, UCSF, University of California at San Francisco, where there's a huge biotech component. That was what you were speaking of.
Yes.
Good. I always think of the viewers as I completely missed what that was about. What's my collateral if I am creating some .com? That's a brilliant idea. It's but it has no physical anything. It's all in my head. How am I going to get a loan from you if I've got nothing that you can take from me?
Yeah, I mean that is with lending from a bank, and we are one of the only handful of banks that does this nationally, because most banks would say, okay, we'll lend to you, can you for $1 of a loan, we want $1 in cash.
Sure.
So that's not what we do. We're looking at the management team, we're looking at the technology, we're looking at the investors. And we're looking at the plan, and we spend a lot of time looking at spaces. So we have, our group within Comerica is a specialized division. We've always considered ourselves kind of a bank within the bank. We have our own credit person, we have our own president. We have people that have been here for a very long time. And the idea thought about that is, because we understand this area, we have that domain expertise. Not as strong as the VCs. We are obviously a lot of times using their expertise to supplement our knowledge and management's, to really understand what we're funding. So that's where we get comfort.
And do you pull that money away in a separate bucket? Because with all the trouble with banks in the last couple of years, the idea of, we don't ask for collateral, and you can see a bank CEO saying you're not going to do what? Is that somehow separated from the rest of Comerica Bank, so that if you've made an odd decision, that goes in a separate bucket? Do you follow my reasoning there? And buckets show how much I know about banking.
But that's how some banks do. They actually set up a wholly owned subsidiary so that if it doesn't work, they decide that it's not a big part of their business, so they'll sell it off or close it down. We are actually a division of Comerica Bank, a silo within the major banking units. And we've been that for, again, over 15 years. So the idea really is we are concentrated. The bank has committed quite a bit of capital and time and resources to this area because we feel that these are the next, when you look at today, the early stage companies are the next winners of the next decade. So that's where we're looking at.
John, I'll have to cut you off there because we'll have to go to a commercial break. Jerry Iwata is the Senior Vice President at Comerica Bank. Jerry, thanks for being with us this morning. Presser will be back in just a moment.